Empty-headed child, that's what she is. Klaus Richter's German dripped with contempt. He thought he was safe, see? Anna wasn't supposed to understand. Big mistake. Water dripped. He ranted. His executives snickered, secure in their little German-speaking bubble. They had no clue Anna's linguistic arsenal could dismantle their arrogance, word by excruciating word. It wasn't just about the language, though. It was about what she knew. Turns out his empire was built on secrets she was about to expose. They think they're superior. They have no idea how her quiet kindness will change everything. And that's the part they really won't see coming. He never imagined that this quiet, unassuming woman would not only understand his cruel words, but reply with a chilling perfection that would shatter his arrogance and expose the truth behind his powerful facade. This is the story of how a perfect retort in a foreign tongue ignited a battle of wits that no one saw coming. The relentless rhythm of the gilded spoon was a world unto itself. It was a universe of clinking, silver-hushed conversations and the silent, scurrying figures who made the magic happen. For Anna Jensen, this universe was both a sanctuary and a cage. At 24, she moved through the opulent dining room with a practiced grace that belied the exhaustion simmering just beneath the surface. Her crisp white uniform was her armor, her polite smile, her shield. Anna was not just a waitress. In her small, book-filled apartment, a world away from the restaurant's velvet-draped walls, she was a scholar. She was a final-year linguistics student at Columbia University, a place she could only afford through a patchwork of scholarships, student loans, and the grueling 10-hour shifts she pulled at this temple of fine dining. Her passion was the architecture of language, the intricate ways cultures communicated, and more often miscommunicated. She could pass the subtle syntax of Mandarin debate, the poetics of Farsi, and dream in the romantic cadence of Italian. This job, with its parade of international clientele, was a living laboratory, but it was also a constant, humbling reminder of the chasm between her dreams and her reality. Her daily battlefield was populated by a familiar cast of characters. There was Mr. Harrison, the restaurant manager, a man whose ambition had long ago curdled into a permanent state of anxious irritation. He patrolled the dining room like a nervous general, his eyes darting everywhere, perpetually searching for a misplaced fork or a dissatisfied scowl. To him, the staff were interchangeable cogs in his meticulously polished machine. A smile for a wealthy patron was worth more than an employee's entire week of hard work. Then there was Jessica. Sharp-featured and ever-watchful, Jessica had been at the Gilded Spoon for 5 years and wore her seniority like a crown of thorns. She viewed every new hire, especially one as bright and efficient as Anna, as a direct threat. Jessica's compliments were always backhanded, her offers to help laced with a saccharine poison designed to make Anna stumble. She'd accidentally swap table assignments to stick Anna with notoriously difficult customers or conveniently forget to relay a special request, hoping to see Anna flustered and reprimanded. Anna handled it all with a quiet stoicism that only seemed to infuriate Jessica more. On this particular Tuesday, the air in the restaurant was thick with a tense, expectant energy. A reservation had been made under a name that sent a ripple of panic through the management, Klaus Richter. Anna had overheard Mr. Harrison muttering the name on the phone earlier, his voice an octave higher than usual. Yes, Mr. Richter's assistant. Of course, table 12 by the window. Absolutely. Our best staff will be at his disposal. Anna knew the name. Anyone who followed international business did. Klaus Richter was a titan of industry, a German engineering magnate whose company, Richter Industries, had a reputation for innovation as fierce as its CEO's reputation for ruthlessness. Financial news articles described him as a corporate predator, a brilliant but brutally unforgiving leader who had built an empire by acquiring and dismantling his competitors. He was infamous for his volcanic temper and his disdain for anything he considered mediocre. As the afternoon rush began to build, Mr. Harrison called a brief, tense staff meeting in the kitchen, the aroma of garlic and truffle oil hanging heavy in the air. "Listen up," he snapped, his eyes scanning their faces. "Klaus Richter is dining with us at 7. This is not a drill. I want flawless service. Impeccable. He's a VIP of the highest order. One mistake, One complaint, and it reflects on all of us. His gaze lingered on Anna for a moment too long. Jensen, you're on table 12. A murmur went through the other servers. Jessica shot Anna a look that was a toxic cocktail of triumph and pity. Table 12 on a RTI was the ultimate trial by fire. It was Harrison's way of testing her, or perhaps setting her up to fail. Sir, are you sure? Anna asked, her voice calm and even. Jessica has more experience with our more discerning Cleonel. Harrison's lips thinned into a semblance of a smile. I'm sure, Jensen. I want our best on display. Don't disappoint me. Jessica smirked, turning away to polish a wine glass with unnecessary vigor. Anna felt a familiar knot tighten in her stomach. It wasn't just about a difficult customer. It was about surviving another night, about earning the tips that would pay for next semester's textbooks, about enduring the casual cruelties of a world that saw her as nothing more than the hands that carried the plates. As she smoothed her apron, she took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and prepared for the storm. The clock on the kitchen wall ticked ominously towards 7 hours. At precisely 7 hours, a hush fell over the entrance of the Gilded Spoon. The arrival of Klaus Richter was less an entrance and more a conquest. He didn't simply walk through the door, he seemed to command the space to part for him. He was a man in his late 50s, tall and severe, with a mane of silver hair swept back from a high forehead. His suit was a masterpiece of charcoal gray tailoring, so sharp it looked like it could cut glass. But it was his eyes that held the room captive, pale, icy blue chips of granite that seemed to assess and dismiss everything they saw in a single sweeping glance. Flanking him were two younger men in similarly expensive but less imposing suits. They radiated an aura of high-rung anxiety, their smiles tight, their movements jerky and uncertain. They were his lieutenants, young executives who had clearly learned that proximity to Klaus Rich was a high-risk, high-reward proposition. They hovered near him, not beside him, like satellites caught in a powerful gravitational pull. Mr. Harrison materialized at the host stand, his professional composure cracking into a sycophantic grin. Mr. Richter, welcome. Welcome to the Gilded Spoon. It is an absolute honor to have you with us this evening. Arter's gaze flickered over Harrison, his expression unchanging. He offered no handshake, only a curt, dismissive nod. My table, he stated, his voice a low rumble, with a distinct German accent. It wasn't a question or a request. It was a command. Of course, right this way, Harrison said, practically bowing as he led the trio toward the best table in the house. Anna watched from her station, her heart thumping a steady, heavy rhythm against her ribs. She had served wealthy people before, tech moguls, old money heirs, celebrities hiding behind sunglasses. But this was different. There was an aura of sheer, unadulterated power around, a palpable coldness that seemed to suck the warmth from the air. As Harrison seated them, he gestured grandly toward Anna, who was now approaching the table with menus in hand. And this is Anna, Mr. Richter. She will be your server this evening. She is one of our very best. Anna forced a calm, professional smile. Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome to the Gilded Spoon. RTO's icy eyes landed on her. They didn't just look at her. They scanned her, appraised her, and filed her away under a category she could feel was unflattering. He took the menu from her hand without a word, his fingers brushing hers for a fleeting moment. His touch was cold. The two executives followed his lead, avoiding eye contact with Anna as if she were a piece of furniture. The initial interaction set the tone for what was to come. Richter was not merely a difficult customer. He was a master of psychological warfare. He began by dissecting the wine list, his questions sharp and designed to trip her up. This Shadow Margot, he said, tapping a finger on the ridiculously expensive bottle. The 05. What was the exact rainfall in Bordeaux that summer? Anna didn't blink. It was a notably dry season, sir, which led to a lower yield but highly concentrated grapes. It's considered one of the best vintages of the decade. A flicker of something annoyance surprise crossed RTOR's face before being suppressed. He grunted a sound of reluctant concession and ordered the wine. When she returned to present the bottle, he watched her every move like a hawk, his gaze critical as she expertly uncorked it, allowing it to breathe. He waved away the offer to taste it himself. Just pour it. The meal proceeded as a series of small, calculated provocations. He sent back his appetizer, claiming the seared scallops were a degree overcooked. He complained that the ambient lighting was insipid and that the music was an offense to the ears. Each complaint was delivered in a low-cutting tone, meant not just for her, but for his cowering associates who murmured their agreement. It was a performance, and Anna was the unwilling supporting actress in his display of dominance. Through it all, she remained a fortress of calm professionalism. She apologized gracefully, replaced the dish without argument, and spoke to the manager about adjusting the lights, all with a serene smile that she hoped masked the growing tension inside her. She felt like she was walking a tightrope over a canyon, with Mr. Harrison watching from one side and Richter from the other, both waiting for her to fall. Jessica was a vulture circling overhead, catching Anna's eye from across the room with a look of undisguised glee. The main courses had just been served. RTOR was in the middle of a tirade about a recent acquisition, his voice slicing through the restaurant's gentle hum. Anna approached the table with a silver pitcher of iced water, her movements quiet and efficient. She moved to refill Rita's glass, a task she had performed 1,000 times. But at that exact moment, one of the executives, gesturing emphatically while trying to agree with his boss, bumped the edge of the table. It was a tiny, almost imperceptible jolt, but it was enough. A single small drop of water escaped the pitcher's spout. It arced through the air and landed silently on the sleeve of Klaus Richter's immaculate gray suit jacket. The world seemed to stop. Arthur froze his hand, halting midway to his mouth. He slowly lowered his fork. The two executives stared, their faces draining of color. Mr. Harrison, watching from across the dining room, looked as though he'd just witnessed a car crash. Anna's heart plunged. "I am so terribly sorry, sir." She began her hand, reaching for a fresh napkin, but RTO didn't even look at her. He held up a hand to silence her, his eyes still fixed on the minuscule dark spot on his sleeve, as if it were a mortal wound. Then, with a sigh of profound theatrical disgust, he turned to his two associates. Believing he was safely cloaked in the ignorance of an American waitress, he switched to his native German. The words that came out were not just angry, they were dripping with venomous contempt. In English, what he said was, "Look at this clumsy girl. They hire these pretty empty-headed children and call it service. She probably has the intelligence of a garden gnome. All she is good for is standing there and looking decorative, utterly incompetent." His executives forced out nervous, sycophantic chuckles. In their world, the boss was always right, and the boss was always funny. They looked at Anna with a new layer of pitying disdain, secure in their shared secret, their whispered language. They had no idea that for Anna it wasn't a secret at all. Every single hateful word had landed not on deaf ears, but in a mind that understood their structure, their nuance, and their brutal intent with perfect, devastating clarity. The shield of her professionalism finally cracked, not with a bang, but with a sudden, chilling silence. The German words hung in the air, invisible and poisonous. To everyone else in the vicinity, the nervous executives, the hovering Mr. Harrison, a nearby couple pretending not to listen, it was just a murmur of a foreign tongue, the sound of a powerful man annoyed. But for Anna, the world had tilted on its axis. The insult was not a general complaint about service. It was a deeply personal and demeaning assault on her intelligence and her worth as a person. Pretty empty-headed child. The intelligence of a garden gnome, utterly incompetent. Each phrase was a precision-guided missile designed to obliterate her dignity under the assumption that she was deaf to their meaning. For a long moment, she did nothing. She simply stood there, the water pitcher still in her hand, her face a mask of carefully constructed neutrality. Inside, a storm was raging. It was the familiar sting of being underestimated, of being judged by her apron and her smile, while her mind, the part of her she valued most, was dismissed as non-existent. It was the culmination of every condescending customer, every passive-aggressive remark from Jessica, every moment she had to swallow her pride to pay her tuition. Klaus Ross seemed to relish the moment. He had demonstrated his power, made his point to his underlings, and put the hired help firmly in her place with the elegant, plausible deniability of a foreign language. He finally turned his cold eyes back to Anna, expecting to see a flustered, apologetic girl, perhaps on the verge of tears. He was ready to wave his hand dismissively and send her scurrying away. But that's not what he saw. He saw her spine straighten. It was a subtle shift, but it changed her entire posture from one of deference to one of dignified defiance. Her chin lifted slightly. The polite, vacant smile of a server vanished, replaced by an expression of profound, glacial calm. She placed the water pitcher deliberately on the service stand beside the table, her movements unhurried and precise. Then she looked directly at him. Her eyes, which he had dismissed as merely decorative, were now sharp, intelligent, and locked onto his with an unnerving intensity. The two executives felt a sudden shift in atmosphere. Their nervous laughter died in their throats. Something was wrong. The girl wasn't cowering, she was observing them. Mr. Harrison, sensing a disaster of epic proportions unfolding, started to move toward the table, his face a mask of panic. He was ready to intervene, to apologize profusely, to offer to have the billion-dollar suit dry cleaned, to fire Anna on the spot if necessary. But he was too late. The silence had stretched just long enough to become charged and uncomfortable. It was Anna who finally broke it. When she spoke, her voice was not loud, but it cut through the dining room's ambient noise with the clarity of a ringing bell. She addressed Klaus Risha, and she did not speak in English. She spoke in perfect formal academic German. The accent was flawless, the diction crisp, the German of a H. Heidelberg lecture hall, not a Berlin street corner. In English. What she said was, "Sir, your assumption that my role in this establishment correlates with a lack of intelligence is as flawed as your grasp of dative case grammar. The correct phrasing would not have been what you said, but a more proper construction. But perhaps one should not expect linguistic precision from a man whose character is so clearly incompetent." She delivered the lines without a trace of anger or hysteria. Her tone was cool, factual, and utterly devastating. She had not only understood his insult, she had dissected it, corrected his grammar as a professor would a student, and then turned his own word incompetent back on him like a polished dagger. The effect was instantaneous and absolute. Klaus Richter's face, which had been a mask of arrogant disdain, seemed to shatter. His mouth fell slightly open. The blood drained from his face, leaving behind a pallid, waxy sheen. His icy blue eyes, for the first time, showed not arrogance, but pure, unadulterated shock. It was the look of a master chess player who had just been checkmated by a pawn. The two executives stared, their jaws slack. They looked from Anna to their boss and back again, their brains struggling to process the impossible reality of what had just happened. This waitress, this American girl, had just intellectually dismantled one of the most feared men in Europe in his own language. From across the room, Jessica's jaw dropped, the wineglass in her hand, frozen mid-polish. Even Mr. Harrison, who had been power-walking toward the table, skidded to a halt a few feet away, his mind reeling. He didn't understand German, but he understood the universal language of a powerful man being rendered utterly speechless. The silence that followed was no longer just uncomfortable. It was a vacuum pulling in the attention of the surrounding tables. The clinking of cutlery stopped. Hushed conversations faded away. In that moment, in the opulent heart of the Gilded Spoon, a waitress in a simple white uniform held the entire room and one billionaire's unraveling ego in the palm of her hand. The tableau held for an eternity measured in heartbeats. Klaus Ra, a man who commanded boardrooms and dictated the fates of multinational corporations, was frozen, his face a canvas of disbelief. The linguistic trap had snapped shut, and he was the one caught in its jaws. His authority, built on a foundation of intimidation and the presumed intellectual inferiority of others, had been vaporized by a 5'7" waitress with a water pitcher. His first instinct was rage. A dark flush began to creep up his neck, a storm gathering behind his eyes. How dare she? How dare this? Nobody speak to him this way. But the rage was immediately checked by a more powerful, more unfamiliar emotion. Humiliation. He had been exposed. His casual cruelty, spoken under what he believed was a cloak of invisibility, had been laid bare for his subordinates to witness. He had tried to play the predator, only to find his prey had sharper teeth. The two young executives were in a state of quiet panic. Their careers depended on navigating the treacherous currents of RTOR's moods. They had laughed at his insult, making them complicit. Now they were caught in the crossfire. They looked at Anna with a new kind of terror, as if she had just revealed herself to be a mythical creature. One of them, a younger man named Thomas, swallowed hard his Adam's apple bobbing. It was Mr. Harrison who finally broke the spell. Rushing forward, his face slick with sweat, he began a torrent of apologies. "Mr. Richter, I am so sorry. I don't know what she said, but I can assure you this is not the standard of the Gilded Spoon. This is unacceptable. Completely unacceptable." "Jensen, you are quiet," Arter snarled. The word was in English, a whip crack of sound that silenced Harrison instantly. Arter's eyes had not left Anna's face. The shock was slowly receding, replaced by a grudging, dangerous curiosity. This was an unexpected variable in his perfectly ordered world. He wasn't accustomed to being surprised. He leaned forward slightly, his voice low and intense. He switched back to German, the language of their confrontation. In English, his words were, "Who are you?" Anna met his gaze without flinching. She replied in the same flawless German, "My name is Anna Jensen. I am your server." The simplicity of her answer was another blow. She wasn't grandstanding or gloating. She was stating a fact, refusing to let him define her by her job while also not denying it. "That is not what I asked," Artior pressed his voice taut. "Where did you learn to speak my language like a native? Not just speak it, understand it." He was testing her again, probing for a weakness, a rareu in this inexplicable armor. He expected an answer like a few college classes or "my grandmother was German." Anna took a quiet breath before responding. "I spent a year on a full academic scholarship at Heidelberg University studying comparative linguistics and Germanic philology. My thesis was on the social linguistic impact of dialectical variations in post-unification Germany." Her answer was a tactical masterstroke. It wasn't just a statement, it was a credential. Heidelberg, philology, thesis. These were words from his world, the world of academia, intellect, and precision. She had just laid her qualifications on the table, and they were, in their own way, as impressive as his corporate ledger. Rita leaned back in his chair, as if physically pushed. Heidelberg, he knew it well. It was Germany's most prestigious university, a cradle of intellectual giants. He had just insulted a Heidelberg scholar, dismissing her as an empty-headed child. The irony was so thick it was suffocating. One of the executives, emboldened by a desperate need to fix the situation, cleared his throat and spoke to Rar in German. "Sir, perhaps we should just... The meal is getting cold." RTR shot him a look that could freeze fire. "Be slunt, Marcus. You laugh like a hyena. You are just as much of an idiot as I was." Marcus visibly shrank in his seat, his face turning a blotchy red. The billionaire turned his attention back to Anna. The game had changed. This was no longer about a spilled drop of water or a rude comment. This was a battle of wits, and he had been outmaneuvered. For the first time in a very long time, Klaus Richter was genuinely intrigued. This young woman possessed a rare combination of intelligence, composure, and courage. She hadn't just defended herself. She had counterattacked with surgical precision. Such qualities were rare. Such qualities were valuable. He looked at her, truly looked at her for the first time. He saw past the uniform to the sharp, analytical mind behind her calm eyes. He saw the steel in her spine. In the brutal calculus of his world assets were to be acquired. Mr. Harrison, utterly bewildered by the lengthy exchange he couldn't understand, decided to take action. "Jensen, my office now," he hissed, grabbing Anna's arm. Anna winced slightly at the tightness of his grip. But before she could respond, Eder's voice cut through the air again, now in crisp, authoritative English. "Take your hand off her." Harrison froze, his hand dropping from Anna's arm as if it had been burned. "She is not going anywhere." Urter continued, his gaze unwavering. "In fact, I believe Miss Jensen and I have something more to discuss." He gestured to the empty chair at his table. "Please," he said to Anna, the words sounding foreign and stiff on his tongue. "Sit down." The invitation, or rather the command, sent a new wave of shock through the room. A billionaire asking a waitress to join him at his table. The entire social order of the Gilded Spoon had been turned upside down. Anna stood there, caught between her fuming manager and the most formidable man she had ever met. The architect of her humiliation, now offering her a seat at his table. The fallout was just beginning. The invitation to sit was so outlandish, so contrary to the rigid hierarchy of the restaurant, that for a moment no one moved. Anna looked at the offered chair, then at Klaus Richter's unreadable face. Her mind raced. Was this another test? A trap? A way to humiliate her further in a more intimate setting? Mr. Harrison found his voice sputtering. Mr. Richter, that is highly irregular. She's on duty. Staff are not permitted to. She is on duty for me. Arter cut him off without a glance, and I am now conducting a private business meeting. I trust my privacy will be respected. He shifted his gaze to his two executives. Marcus Thomas, go and inspect the dessert menu at the bar. Take your time. The two men, grateful for the escape, scrambled from their chairs and skirted away toward the bar, leaving a supercharged vacuum at the table. RTR's eyes were back on Anna. Miss Jensen, please. Her training, her instincts, everything screamed at her to decline to maintain the professional distance that was her only protection. But a stronger, more defiant impulse took over. He had started this. He had dragged her into this bizarre confrontation. She would see it through. With a quiet grace that belied the turmoil inside her, Anna pulled out the chair and sat down, her back ramrod straight. Across the dining room, Jessica watched her mouth agape. This was not how the story was supposed to end. Anna was supposed to be fired, humiliated, sent home in tears. Instead, she was sitting at table 12 opposite Klaus Rich, as if she were an honored guest. A venomous jealousy, sharp and hot, flooded Jessica's veins. For a few moments, Richter simply studied Anna. You are not what you seem, Miss Jensen, he said, his English precise. Most people aren't, Mr. Richter, she replied, her voice even. Touché, he conceded, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. It did not reach his eyes. Your German is more than fluent. It is academic. Why are you working here serving overpriced food to people like me? It was the question she had asked herself 1,000 times. She decided on the simple truth. Because H. Heidelberg scholarships do not pay for New York rent or Columbia tuition. This is an honorable job that pays the bills. She said the words with a quiet dignity that was in itself a rebuke to his earlier insult. Honor does not pay for opportunity, he countered, dismissing the sentiment with a wave of his hand. Intellect does. Courage does. You displayed both. Those are commodities, I understand. They are commodities I invest in. Anna remained silent, waiting. My company, Rita Industries, is finalizing a major acquisition of an American tech firm based in San Francisco. The deal is complex. The cultural and linguistic barriers are significant. My American team is competent, but they lack nuance. They see the words, but they don't understand the music behind them. The German team is equally elixable. They see everything as black and white. He leaned forward again, his intensity creating a palpable pressure. I need a bridge, not just a translator who can swap words from one language to another. I have dozens of those. I need someone who understands the psychology of both cultures. Someone who can read the subtext in a negotiation. Someone who can tell me when a yes really means no, and when a polite smile is masking a deep-seated reservation. I need an interpreter of culture, not just language. The implication hung in the air. Anna's heart began to beat faster. She saw where this was going, but it seemed too surreal to be true. I am offering you a position at Richter Industries, he said, the words dropping like stones into a silent pool. You would work directly with my executive team as a special consultant and cultural liaison for this merger. The position is based in New York for the first 6 months, then San Francisco. The salary will be $180,000 per year plus a signing bonus. Anna felt the air leave her lungs. $180,000. It was a number so large, so far beyond her reality of counting tips and worrying about textbook costs that it barely registered as real. It was a life-changing dream, making debt-erasing sum of money. It was freedom and it was being offered by the man who not 20 minutes ago had compared her intelligence to that of a garden gnome. The whiplash was staggering. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Why me?" "Because you are not afraid of me," Richter stated simply. "Everyone in my company is afraid of me. They tell me what I want to hear. You, Miss Jensen, told me the truth, even when it was dangerous. That is a rare and valuable trait. In my business, it is worth more than a dozen MBAs from Harvard. So, what do you say?" Anna looked at his expectant face at the opulent dining room that had been her prison and at the open door he was presenting. But her mind was a whirlwind of conflict. Could she work for him? This arrogant, cruel man. Could she accept a future that was born from such a moment of profound disrespect? I need to think about it," she said, her voice regaining some of its strength. Arthur nodded slowly, a flicker of respect in his eyes. He had expected an immediate, grateful acceptance. Her hesitation intrigued him even more. "Very well. Be at my New York office tomorrow morning at 9 EU. Here is the address." He slid a thick embossed business card across the table. "We will discuss the details. Do not be late." With that, he stood, threw a few hundred bills on the table, far more than enough to cover the bill, and walked out of the restaurant without a backward glance. Anna sat in a daze, the business card feeling heavy and hot in her hand. The entire restaurant was staring at her. Mr. Harrison looked like he was about to have an aneurysm, but the most dangerous glare was coming from Jessica. As Anna finally stood up and walked back toward the staff area, Jessica cornered her by the kitchen doors. "So?" Jessica hissed, her voice dripping with acid. "What was that all about? Did you offer him something that wasn't on the menu?" The insinuation was vile, but Anna was too emotionally exhausted to rise to the bait. "It was a misunderstanding, Jessica. A misunderstanding that gets you a private audience and a business card." Jessica scoffed, her eyes narrowing. "I don't know what you did, but I'm not going to let some little college girl come in here and get special treatment. I've worked here for 5 years. I've earned my place." Over the next 2 hours, as Anna tried to finish her shift, the sabotage began. A tray of drinks she was carrying was subtly jostled by Jessica, accidentally bumping into her, causing them to spill all over the floor. A food order she put in was lost, making her table wait for 40 minutes and earning her a sharp reprimand from Harrison. Jessica began whispering to the other staff, casting suspicious glances at Anna, planting seeds of rumor and resentment. Anna realized that even if she turned down Arthur's offer, her life at the Gilded Spoon was over. Jessica, fueled by a corrosive envy, would make every remaining shift a living hell. The world she had known, the cage that had also been her sanctuary, was already beginning to crumble around her. The choice was no longer just about accepting an offer. It was about escaping a place that had suddenly become toxic and untenable. The path forward was terrifying, but the path back was now blocked by flames. The walk home from the Gilded Spoon felt like a journey through a dream. The familiar New York City streets, the blare of horns, the chatter of late-night crowds, the scent of street vendor hot dogs were all a muted backdrop to the roaring chaos in Anna's mind. In her pocket, Klaus Richter's business card felt less like paper and more like a weighted artifact from another dimension. Klaus Richter, CEO, Richter Industries. The severe minimalist font seemed to mock the cluttered reality of her life. Her apartment was a tiny fourth-floor walk-up, her sanctuary filled with towers of books on linguistics, history, and poetry. It was a space that was entirely hers, paid for by aching feet and forced smiles. Tonight, however, it felt small and constricting. She sank onto her worn-out sofa, the springs groaning in protest, and stared at the card. $180,000, music. The number was an absurdity. It was the solution to every problem that kept her awake at night. It meant an end to student loans that hung over her future like a guillotine. It meant no more choosing between a new textbook and a proper meal. It meant she could finally help her mother, a retired school teacher living on a meager pension in Ohio. It meant she could step out of the shadows of service and into the world she had studied for, a world of international consequence. But the price of this golden ticket was allegiance to Klaus Richter. She replayed the scene in her mind, the ugly German words echoing with perfect clarity. Clumsy girl, empty-headed, incompetent. He hadn't just insulted her, he had reveled in it. He had used his power and his language to dehumanize her for the sport of it, to entertain his sickens. Could she work for a man like that? Could she sit in meetings with him, assist him, and contribute to his success, knowing the foundation of their relationship was his own casual cruelty? To accept his offer felt like a form of complicity, a tacit endorsement of his behavior. It felt like selling a piece of her soul. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from her mother. "Just checking in, sweetie. Hope you had a good shift. Love you." Anna's eyes welled with tears. Her mother had sacrificed so much for her, working 2 jobs for years to ensure Anna had the best education possible. It was her mother who had nurtured her love for languages, buying her used German and French storybooks from thrift stores. This job offer wasn't just about her own future. It was a chance to repay that lifetime of devotion. How could she turn her back on that? The conflict tore her apart. One path offered integrity, but a continued struggle. The other offered a brilliant future, but it was paved with moral compromise. Her thoughts were interrupted by another buzz. A text from a Sea Orker, a kind busboy named Leo. "Hey, you okay? Jessica is telling everyone you got a customer's number and Harrison is on the warpath. Just watch your back." Anna's heart sank. Jessica wasn't just whispering. She was building a narrative, a false, ugly story that would taint Anna's reputation long after she was gone. The sabotage was escalating. It confirmed what she already knew. Her time at the restaurant was over one way or another. She couldn't go back to that environment. Not now. The illusion of it being a safe, if temporary, workplace had been shattered. She stood up and walked to her desk, pushing aside a stack of papers on Chomsky's theory of universal grammar. She opened her laptop and began to research. For hours, she dove into the world of Klaus Richter and Richter Industries. She read financial reports, press releases, and scathing opinion pieces. He was described as a visionary monster, a brilliant butcher, and a necessary evil in the cutthroat world of global tech. His company was known for its aggressive takeovers, but also for its groundbreaking innovations in sustainable engineering. He fired people without a second thought, but he also funded massive philanthropic projects in education and the arts. He wasn't a simple villain. He was a complex, contradictory, and powerful force, and he was offering her a seat at his table. Anna thought about her studies. Linguistics wasn't just about grammar and vocabulary. It was about understanding that meaning is shaped by context, power, dynamics, and perception. It was about navigating the space between what is said and what is meant. The job was offering. It was a real-world application of everything she had ever learned. It would be the ultimate test. A new feeling began to crystallize, pushing through the fear and indignation, a spark of defiance. Why should she be the one to retreat? Rita had underestimated her once. Perhaps the best way to answer his insult wasn't to walk away, but to step into his world and prove him wrong on a daily basis. She wouldn't just be his translator. She would be a constant living reminder of his misjudgment. She wouldn't be his subordinate. She would be his intellectual equal, a professional who commanded respect. Not because he gave it, but because she earned it. The decision settled not with a feeling of joy or relief, but with a quiet, steely resolve. She would go to that meeting. She would accept the job, but she would do it on her own terms. She would set boundaries. She would not be one of his cowering executives. She would be Anna Jensen scholar, linguist, and consultant. Her value was not something he was giving her with a salary. It was something she was bringing to his company. She spent the next hour drafting an email to Mr. Harrison, a simple professional resignation effective immediately. She cited a sudden, unexpected career opportunity. She did not mention Klaus Ra. She would not give Jessica the satisfaction of knowing the truth. Let them believe what they wanted. She was already moving on. As dawn broke, painting the New York skyline in shades of gray and pink. Anna showered and chose her outfit with the care of a general preparing for battle. She didn't have a corporate wardrobe, but she had a simple, well-fitting black dress, a classic blazer she'd bought at a thrift store, and low, sensible heels. She pulled her hair back into a sleek, professional bun. Looking in the mirror, she no longer saw the tired waitress from last night. She saw a woman standing at a crossroads, choosing the more difficult, more dangerous, but infinitely more promising path. She was terrified, but she was ready. She picked up the business card from her desk and walked out the door, leaving her old life behind. The Richter Industries building was a monument of glass and steel that pierced the Manhattan sky, a testament to the ego of the man who built it. Its lobby was a cavernous, intimidating space of polished black marble and stark white walls adorned with abstract art that probably cost more than Anna's entire college tuition. The air was cool and smelled faintly of money and ambition. Men and women in impeccably tailored suits moved with a brisk, silent purpose, their faces set in masks of serious determination. It was a world away from the controlled chaos of the Gilded Spoon. Anna walked to the imposing front desk, her low heels clicking softly on the marble floor. "Anna Jensen for Klaus Richter. I have a 9-hour appointment." The receptionist, a chic woman with an avant-garde haircut, looked at her with a flicker of surprise. Anna didn't look like the usual parade of investment bankers or corporate lawyers, but a quick tap on her keyboard brought up the appointment. The surprise morphed into professional deference. "Of course, Miss Jensen. Mr. Richter is expecting you. Please take the express elevator to the 80th floor. His executive assistant will meet you there." The elevator ride was a silent, stomach-lurching ascent. As the city shrank below, Anna's resolve wavered for a second. What was she doing here? She was a linguist, a student. She was about to walk into the lion's den, armed with nothing but a few degrees and a stubborn sense of self-worth. She took a deep breath, clutching her portfolio, and remembered the promise she'd made to herself. She was not here for a job interview. She was here for a negotiation. The 80th floor opened up to a serene, minimalist office space with a panoramic view of Central Park. A severe-looking woman with a headset, Richter's executive assistant, greeted her without a smile and led her to a pair of massive oak doors. "Mr. Richter will be right with you." Anna was shown into a vast corner office. 3 of the walls were floor-to-ceiling windows, making her feel as though she were floating over the city. The 4th wall was lined with books, not just business texts, but philosophy, history, and classical literature in German, English, and French. A large, formidable desk stood like an altar in the center of the room. Klaus Richter was not there. It was a classic power play. Make her wait in his intimidating space to remind her of his importance and her insignificance. But Anna didn't feel insignificant. She felt curious. She walked over to the bookshelf, her fingers lightly tracing the spines. Schiller, Goethe, Kunt, but also Twain, Faulkner, and Whitman. The man was well-read, a fact that both intrigued and troubled her. He was not an ignorant brute. His cruelty was the product of a sharp, educated mind. "I see you are admiring my collection, Miss Jensen." Arter's voice came from the doorway. He had entered silently. He was dressed not in a suit, but in a simple dark cashmere sweater and trousers, an intentional choice to appear more approachable, to shift the power dynamic. Anna didn't buy it. "A person's library can be very revealing," she replied, turning to face him. "And what does mine reveal to you?" he asked, walking towards his desk. "That you value the architecture of great arguments," she said, "and that you are a man who understands the power of words." A flicker of a genuine smile touched his lips this time. "Indeed, it is why I believe we have business to discuss. Please sit." He gestured to a chair opposite his desk. It was still a position of supplication, but less formal than the night before. "Thank you, Mr. Richter," she began, remaining standing. "Before we discuss your offer, I have some terms of my own." His eyebrows shot up. This was not on his script. "You have terms?" "Yes," Anna said, her voice steady and clear. "First, our professional relationship will be based on mutual respect. My role is to provide expert consultation. I will not be an errand girl, nor will I tolerate being spoken to in a demeaning manner in any language. My feedback and analyses are to be considered, not just heard." She paused, letting the words sink in. Artur watched her, his expression unreadable. "Second," she continued, "while I will be dedicated to the success of this project, I am still completing my master's degree at Columbia. I will require a degree of flexibility in my schedule to complete my coursework and my thesis. My work for you will not suffer, but my education is non-negotiable. And third, she finished, I accept the salary you proposed, but the signing bonus you mentioned, I want it redirected. Richter Industries has a philanthropic foundation. I want that amount used to create a scholarship fund for students of the humanities, specifically linguistics at Columbia University. We can call it the Richter Industries Scholarship for Cultural Understanding. She had laid all her cards on the table. The last demand was her master stroke. It was audacious, yes, but it was also brilliant. It transformed the bonus, a simple financial transaction, into something meaningful. It forced him to put his money where his mouth was, to publicly validate the very field of study he had privately mocked. It was a checkmate. RTOR was silent for a full minute, his steepled fingers covering his mouth as he stared at her. He had expected a negotiation over salary vacation days, perhaps a corner office. He had not expected a lecture on respect and a demand for a philanthropic legacy. He had tried to buy an asset, and the asset was now rewriting the terms of her own acquisition. Finally, he lowered his hands. He leaned back in his chair and let out a short, sharp laugh. It wasn't a mocking laugh. It was a sound of genuine, surprised amusement. Miss Jensen, he said, a slow smile spreading across his face, you are more dangerous than I thought. He extended a hand across the vast desk. Welcome to Artor Industries. You will draft the scholarship proposal with our foundation's director this afternoon. As Anna took his hand, the grip firm and dry, she knew this was not an ending. It was the beginning of the most challenging and complex chapter of her life. Working with Klaus Richter would be a daily battle of wills, a constant navigation of his formidable intellect and his volatile temperament. But as she looked out the window at the sprawling city below, a city of infinite possibilities, she no longer felt like she was floating. For the first time, she felt like she had a place to stand. She had walked into the lion's den, and not only had she survived, she had emerged with the lion's respect. The waitress was gone. In her place stood a woman who knew her worth in every language. That single moment of defiance, born from a cruel insult, didn't just change Anna's job. It changed her destiny. Her story is a powerful reminder that our true value is not defined by the uniform we wear or the job we do, but by the strength of our character and the depth of our intellect. Klaus Richter thought he was putting a lowly waitress in her place, but instead he found the one person who could stand up to him and command his respect. It proves that sometimes the quietest voices hold the most powerful words, and true strength isn't about shouting the loudest, but about knowing exactly when and how to speak your truth. If Anna's incredible story inspired you, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs a reminder of their own worth. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you won't miss our next story of unexpected triumph.